Pecans, almonds, and cashews.
Whitney's mom is making caramel.
Oh, I
She
love.
has regular caramel.
Oh,
And she has peppermint caramel.
What? I don't know about that. Check Complete, a referee podcast, is an educational resource for referees by referees, designed to connect and develop soccer officials of all ages and skill levels to better serve the game both on and off the field. Welcome back to the Check Complete podcast. It is season 2, episode number 13. Here with Nathan Colling. Nathan, how are we?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me back.
It is great to have you back. This episode, we are going to dive into... I know we've kind of... The last few episodes, we stepped a little bit away from our nerding out segments, and by the overwhelming lack of mail that we got about it, we're gonna go back to it. So I don't know if anybody was really missing it or not, but I was.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. So we're gonna start with grammar, and then we're gonna move to.
I'll try that again.
So anyway, so let's nerd out. So Nathan, you are well, we're all referee nerds, in our own right. But you've nerded out with some referee gear over the years, right? So and you've brought some of that for show and tell to the class today.
I did. I feel like I kind of have a little bit of a reputation of nerding out on referee gear, videos, and whatchamacallits. So
Yes.
thought I'd come help out a little bit today.
Yes, we're thrilled. So we're just going to jump right into this about several different items that, and so some of you might have, been contemplating purchasing these, or maybe you're asking Santa Claus for it in the upcoming holiday season. I don't know, but let's see what we got here. So what do we want to start with? You've got some different items here.
We could talk about items you'd use before the match even starts.
Yes, before the match. Here we go.
So pretty much everyone has some sort of gauge and pump, before the game that we should be using. But in regards to making things a lot simpler, a lot easier, a lot more efficient, I have one that's an electric one. A lot of people have seen, what do you call it? What's the big name
The
brand?
Torex
Torex,
ones.
yes.
Yeah.
So the Torex is a big name brand that everyone wants. Kind of hard to get their hands on.
Yeah, they stopped making them.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, they stopped making them.
Unfortunate, because they're wonderful.
They are, yeah.
Very helpful. So I found one on Amazon from a brand called Fantic. I'm not paid to say.
Yeah, this
their
is not a
name.
paid
Not
ad.
nothing.
Yeah, I wish it was.
I wish we'd make a lot more money.
Yeah.
And so this one's nice. You can go ahead and just set it just like one. You can change the sports mode. So for those of you out there who are using it for different sports, you can do that as well. Change it up, change it down. And then once you get it where you need, just use the needle in the back, screw it in, and hit go.
Well, let's see it, because the needle comes out.
Yes.
I'm contemplating purchasing this item, so.
So the needle hides in the back, which is nice, because then you don't break it.
Yep.
You can just screw it on like
Does it also
this.
come with an adapter that you could,
like a longer one?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you could probably find it.
But you can just,
I feel like all
that's just fine, right?
I think all needles are pretty much the same, so you could probably just find one
Yeah.
from another brand. But yeah, and then simple as that.
And I can feel the air.
So depending on which ones you get, some are a lot nicer, some are a little faster. But this one gets the job done. Nice and handheld.
What was the downside on this one that you mentioned?
The only negative on this one is it doesn't take air out of it. It only puts air into the ball. So, I still carry a gauge with me for that instance. I just take it out that way.
Or you could just you could take the needle out
You can
and just
unscrew
do it that
and
way.
use that. Yeah, pretty simple.
Right. So it's not, if that's your big hang up, then I guess this isn't for you. I don't know. But there's ways to do it.
Yeah,
So.
and there's lots of other options out there. Some are, I don't know if there's one smaller than this. This is the smallest one I found, but there's lots of other very convenient ones that you can use. So
How's the battery charged? How often do you have to?
I have had this pretty much through the whole college season since or maybe late summer,
So 3 or 4 months?
and I haven't had to charge it yet. So
Wow.
so far so good.
Okay. Because I bought one a while back, and I was not pleased with how long the charge or lack thereof lasted. I was like, this is hot garbage.
No,
I can't remember what the brand was.
I've enjoyed this one so far. I've seen a couple others out there that people have had through the college season that have been very helpful. But
Yeah, I like it. I mean,
I recommend it.
somewhat aesthetically pleasing as well. Sorry, I kind of spit on you there, But yeah, no. Yeah, and this brand has larger pumps as well.
They do, yeah. I've actually, because I like this one so much, I actually bought more for my road bike, for my car, and I think they have just some massive ones, maybe even with, that you can plug it into your car to charge it up.
Tractor. Yeah, your combine. If you need to gas up the old combine on your way to a match.
That's a Kansas speaking, but that's all right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay, very cool. So pumps, but yeah, if you can get your hands on a Torex, those are nice. I know those were retailing at about $70,
Yeah.
but I think there was some sort of chip in there that got originally. I think it was got stuck in a barge in the middle of a canal somewhere or something.
I think that's where every chip has gotten stuck,
right?
Somewhere in the middle of the ocean.
But then the company just decided, yeah, I guess we're done. Like, I mean, I get that. Sure. I feel that about every day. Just think about mailing it in.
Give it up.
But Torex did it, so props to you guys for quitting. But for what we're doing, there's a lot of different stuff on Amazon. You can go and peruse several different options. And, of course, in the world of customer reviews, you can read from people that have done it. But that brand seems very reputable. You've spoken highly of it. And then if you do go onto the Amazon page, you can read it's really highly starred.
Has really good reviews.
Reviewed, yeah. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, definitely if you're, I've got the old hand pump, which works.
It works.
But
gets the job done.
If you've got 5-6 game balls that's, they dump a bag out and you're like, sheesh,
Good luck.
And sometimes the accuracy of, you got to figure out what the PSI is at and all that kind of stuff. So anyway,
just a lot more convenient.
Okay. So good tech, good solid start there. All right. What's our next item?
I'm thinking, I think another one we can talk about is spray.
Oh yeah. We kind of haven't really talked about spray before.
It's not super common, but everyone sees it in the professional leagues that they're using this one. Mm-hmm. This is the same brand that they're using in the professional leagues called Ref Edge Pro. I know there's a couple others out there, but this seems to be the go-to in both the professional game and the college game recently.
Yeah, college has a partnership with, NISOA has a partnership with Ref Edge.
Yep.
So now talk about the holster.
So the holster is actually not one that comes with Ref Edge. It's actually a different brand. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I want to say it's Expo Line, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I have the same one.
But this is the one they use more often in the Champions League that you see versus the ones they use in the MLS or in college. Seems to be a little thicker, it's a little bit more sturdy. But it's at the end of the day, it really comes down to personal preference. Yeah.
One of the things that I found with a full can of spray and that holster, it can weigh your trousers down if you're not careful.
It can. You better tie them tight.
Yeah, tie them real tight. Otherwise, you're sagging
as
you're running through.
We don't need that.
or you're doing one of these numbers. It's like running through an airport with a backpack. It just gets wild. So anyway, now do you keep it capped?
I do not keep it capped. I have seen that before. I typically like to take the cap off, leave it in the locker room beforehand, or leave it at midfield beforehand. But I prefer not to run around with that. That way I can just put it back on afterwards and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And that way I'm not, spraying that all over my referee bag in between games as I'm traveling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and exactly. Yeah. And I'm not one that keeps the cap on, but I've seen several people that will keep the cap on during the game.
I've seen that.
Ref Edge Pro also has that company. You can buy the holsters from them. You can get the plain black or green or multiple different colors that you can get.
I've seen people that do it either to match their jerseys, match their whistles. Mm-hmm. I prefer just to have the black and just stick with that and use it every game.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. So, yeah, no, if you've never used spray, now just be careful where you're working. You might need to get permission if this is something you can use. But I know for us, like high school, there's zero restrictions on that in the state of Kansas. There's no restrictions. In fact, it's encouraged in the collegiate game to use for management. Yep. Obviously, this is for those that are wondering, this is for setting walls. Right? That's one thing primarily is what we're using this for, is to set where the ball is an initial spray and then another spray when we're 10 yards away. But we've also seen some people get creative with this.
Absolutely. I think we saw J.C. Rivera was the first one to do it at a Sporting KC match, multiple years ago when he went to go talk to an assistant referee about a decision. And, as we've seen before, lots of people like to crowd around the referees and give their opinions, we like to say.
Right.
So in order to combat that, he kind of just put the spray down and it worked like magic, and everyone stood away from him.
Yeah.
So I think he was the first.
Yeah, I don't know who it was, but I remember seeing that. And then the other thing around walls, obviously we need players. If the wall has 3 or more defending players in it, we need attacking players a minimum of 1 yard away. We don't need them there. In order for them to keep the free kick, they need to be a minimum of 1 yard away. And so I have seen referees do that as well, where they'll step the player off and then spray to give them a visual reminder, which I think we all are visual people, and then that helps us manage those situations a little bit better for sure. These bottles, the canisters retail for $10 a canister. Is that correct?
Sounds about right. Pretty close.
So you can get 6 for $60. That's math. So that they're not cheap.
They're not cheap, but
Right.
they last you. I think if you abuse it in a game, you could probably get 3 games out of those.
Yeah, that's probably
I'd say
fair.
2 to 3 games if you're abusing it. But I don't use it that often, pretty sparingly, and
Right.
gets me a handful of games.
You want me to share an embarrassing moment with this?
Yeah.
So I don't keep the cap on, and I probably should, because there was one time where I bent over and I have a little bit some crassly refer to it as a muffin top, but I have a little bit of a spare tire at times, and so I kind of bent over and I hear this sound, and I look. And
it wasn't your spare tire going flat?
It was not my
Okay.
No. And my fat had pushed the canister, and it was just spraying into my stomach. So yeah, one of my low lights.
So
Some would say rock bottom.
Did you learn from that? What did you learn from this?
Lean the other way. Most people would be like, yeah, you need a lifestyle change. I was like, I'll just lean the other way. And then I went home and wolfed down a pizza, So anyway, cool. Spray, good stuff. All right. There are other brands, like you said, but this is the one I think that we see most often, and because there are existing partnerships at multiple levels.
It's kind of amazing what a can of Barbasol can do for you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Just make sure you don't get the ones where you have to rub it in, because then it gets real awkward when you're down on the turf having to
It's a little awkward.
the spray foam stuff. Okay. What's next for us? Mary Poppins here.
Want to go with communication devices?
Yeah, let's talk about communication devices.
I think
People
everyone
are
wants to learn more
obsessed
about this.
with communication devices. Okay.
So everyone, or I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people recently, last couple of years, have seen the influx of communication devices, headsets, comms, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
But we've seen them at all different kinds of levels, all different versions of these, some more, some less expensive. At the end of the day, it really doesn't come down to what system you have. I think it really comes down to how you use it.
Sure.
And just, how that communication happens between the referee and the assistant referees and your fourth official, if there is one. So I've been fortunate enough to get a nice set of Voqueros. I've had them for probably 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
They've been very, very helpful. I don't use them all the time, but when they do, man, they're nice to have.
Yeah. So Voquero is top of the line for sure. There's a lot of and these are not. They were at one point, right? When you had them, were they the top of the line version?
So there was a version that looked just like this. That was called the Pro version.
Okay.
I think that was what it was called. And these are the varsities. The blue. They're blue if they're varsity. If they're gray, I think they're called Pro.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that because I'm probably wrong.
Probably.
But close enough.
And then now they have the Squadron.
So these were always called the Squadra. These were the Squadra varsities.
Oh, excuse me.
And then the other ones were Squadra Pros. And then the new ones are.
The Elite.
I think it's this Elite. I think that sounds right.
Elite.
I think
so
it's
those are the
Elite.
ones that all the bigwigs are wearing.
Those are the ones that I've seen on some professional levels. I think the MLS is using those. But I know the World Cup actually uses a different brand, which is kind of strange. But yeah, there's a lot out there. And these continue to get better and better, way more clear. The new ones are fantastic. It's like you're on a phone call. These will cut out, get a little fuzzy sometimes, but they're still wonderful.
Yeah. These are like if you're on a phone call on Cricket Wireless, whereas the other ones are like you're on a phone call on Verizon or something, or T-Mobile.
We're not going to go after Ryan Reynolds and Mint, or is it Mint Mobile?
Mint.
Yeah, we won't
mint.
go after him today.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, but there are a lot of, and forgive me, I didn't bring them with me. I'm so sorry. But there are a lot of other options. We have one that another member of our chapter, John Burke, had an extra set of these, and they're essentially just like, it kind of advertises like motorcycle comms, although there is on the box there's like a picture of a soccer referee, so they actually are, but they are, and obviously for those of you that have that use these, it's an open mic system, except for if you do have a fourth official, they are a push to talk for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But for these, you have the World Cup headsets.
I do, yes.
So the ones that tuck in here, you have a mold, correct? You have an ear mold. A lot of officials, if you're working games, a lot of games with these types of either the Voqueros or even the Yapalongs, right? Mm-hmm. You could use your headset, your ear mold for the Yapalongs too.
Well. It's kind of a process where you just have to go to an audiologist. You get that impression from the audiologist. It's kind of like when you go to the dentist, they do the impression with your mouth. It's a very similar thing they do with your ear. Yeah. And then you just take that and you ship it off. In the past, it used to have to go off to Switzerland. So it was a couple-month process to get that thing back through customs. Mm-hmm. Now, I believe through Voquero, they've simplified it, and it's now done in the United States. Don't ask me where. I don't know that answer. But
don't know either.
It's a much faster process, I believe, as far as I'm aware now. So it's much helpful. Very helpful.
And if there's a problem with it, can you get it redone?
You can get the impression redone. I don't know about the mold. That would kind of depend on whoever that's being sent off to. Because they're kind of expensive.
And I was always told that you never really get a second chance at a first impression. Sorry. Anyway,
we go to the next topic already.
Yeah, we can cut that. That's fine. You better not. You better not cut that, because that was pure gold.
It was clever. I'll give it that.
Yeah. It took me a while to get there. Anyway, so yeah, you can get those done. It is a little expensive, but I would say, you would say it's worth it if you're working a lot of games with that stuff.
Yeah, if you're using them often, the impression and the ear mold just makes it so you get a perfect fit pretty much every single time, which just makes it so much better than having to find because typically on these things there's a couple different earbud sizes. You got to find the right one. Small, medium, large. There's some little, but I think they call them concha retention pieces. Everyone thinks they're antennas. They're not, but they look like it.
Yeah, and those have different sizes.
Those are different sizes too.
Yeah.
And so trying to find that perfect fit every single time, and if people are missing things,
then you're
a little bit unlucky.
You might have to wear the tall instead of the grande piece.
Not good for me.
No, that's right. Yeah, when you really want the what's the large called? The venti.
Venti.
You want the venti piece. Yeah. Since Starbucks had to reinvent.
You go way too much.
So stupid. So stupid. But yeah, the honestly, to go back to the motorcycle ones, they work pretty good. They do fairly well. I'm amazed. If you can get them synced up, sometimes the syncing has like a hard time on it, but you have to kind of sync them up. But you get it right, and then you don't have to wear a full helmet. But it is like an over-the-ear thing. You can buy. There's a set. You can buy other things. It's just the normal. What is that? The headphone jack.
I think it's like 3.5 millimeter jack.
Yeah, it's just a normal. So anything you could find would probably work for that. Yeah. And then you can actually you can buy a fourth one and then get one that is a push-to-talk type thing. Okay. Because we use that at a state tournament in Topeka. Cool. So so there actually is that available, which is nice. So anyway, lots of options when it comes to communication devices. If you're out there and you're like, I want it now, before you buy a communication device, make sure that like where you're working, that's permissible. It's becoming more and more prevalent in our game. But I will say, I think there's a lot of feelings of make sure you know how to referee without them first, because they can be leaned on as a crutch and can be used incorrectly, which can be problematic as well. So I think they're meant to be an additional add-on to. I've created some good base levels of who I am, not to supplement or take the. Let me say it this way: not to take the place of good mechanics.
I kind of think about it as like a VAR for your referee communication.
Yeah.
So like, don't use the VAR or the comms to replace your normal everyday, day-to-day refereeing style. Kind of still have to mix it up and use these as an additional tool to still doing the eye contact. At the end of the day,
right?
Because if these go out and this is what you're relying on, now you're in trouble. So use it as an additional tool. It's kind of your last step in regards to communicating with the rest of your crew.
Yeah. I will say one thing that we have done before, you've done this, I've done this, that's helpful is in training.
Yep.
If you have a new official and you're able to do, maybe this is in a clinic setting or a preseason scrimmage or something like that, this can be really, really helpful to put the headsets on, put the communication devices to work so that you can be the kind of observer and you're coaching as they're going.
Yep.
That can be really helpful. I've done that in like 2-man games or even a 3-person crew when I'm on the line, and you can kind of coach as you go along. Or you've done it where you mic'd up the crew and then you're in the bleachers or field side in some capacity, walking them through specific things like, hey, good job with that, or let's get the flag up in the other hand, this and this and this. So there's a lot of opportunities for education for these to be utilized.
Yeah, I've also done it. I've done it with just one other official before, where either I've just been the referee, and then like one of my ARs had one other mic, just 2 of us, and then the third AR didn't have it, but that's because the third AR was experienced, and I was just trying to walk the new one through some stuff. He was newer to high school, kind of newer to refereeing in general, and so he didn't have a big background in regards to where do I stand, how do I signal. So I kind of worked with him on that, just to say, hey, make sure you switch the flag to your under versus above.
Right, just some of those basic things.
Little small things just to make things look cleaner.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I can't force him to referee a certain way, but I think having a little voice in the back of your head telling you how to work a little bit cleaner definitely helps.
That live feedback and the lessons learned through hearing you manage, hearing I've learned so much about managing people, players, coaches, just by being on communication devices with other officials, working games with John and hearing him manage. John Freeman, our local professional referee. So there's a lot of educational opportunities that these can be utilized for, and it's becoming more and more prevalent in our games at all levels. I know the high schools have even said, like, what if we bought these? Would you guys use them? It's like, yeah, we probably would, but I'm not sure if I don't know if they then raise the bar internally to be like, we've given you comms, why are you making mistakes? That's not how this works.
Yeah, also we do not become professional referees just because we have these.
No, I'm still just as bad as I was before I put the headset on.
See, part of the gift of having this is you just look more professional. You don't actually have to do anything better.
Yes.
People just trust you a lot more.
You could not have it plugged into anything. That would be awesome.
You could.
That would be
not
awesome.
even bring these, just bring the headset?
Just bring the headset and just tuck it into your shirt.
Sign me up.
And then just be the whole time, just be like, no, he said there's no contact there. Okay, thank you. Oh,
My AR said corner kick, but he pointed for a throw it. Don't worry about it.
Don't argue with the communication device. All right, what else you got down there?
Sure.
Nathan Poppins. That's what
down
you
to
are.
our last one. It's not really a referee-related item, but it's more of just a fitness, keeping yourself healthy.
That's a tongue twister.
That's a tongue twister. That one hurt. It's called Hyper Ice, the Hyper Volt. They have a couple different models: smaller, larger, cheaper, more expensive. This is kind of more middle of the road. I like it because it's small, portable, can easily go and fit in my bag. Doesn't take up a lot of space. Bunch of different attachments, bunch of different brands out there as well.
Yeah.
Don't have to get this one. I know NISOA has a partnership. The college referee organization NISOA has a partnership with Hyper Ice to get a little bit of a discount. Don't remember what that discount is, but every little bit helps.
I don't know if they still do or not, but they did at some point. Whether they do now, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head. They've kind of gone in and out, a bunch of them, but very helpful just for before games, after you're stretching, just to get that little extra oomph in your step with your muscles. After games, they're wonderful just to stretch out, feel better, recover, Because at the end of the day, we are doing a lot of games, especially for us, especially in our fall and spring seasons when you're doing multiple, you could do 5-week game days in a week. And this just, every little bit helps. So I rely on this thing probably too much.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there's 1,000. I have this exact same one. This retails, I think, for $150.
Sounds right.
On Amazon, or if it's in a store, it's free if you run fast enough. But this is $150. I got this for $100 on Black Friday. So yeah, it's a great tool. It works really, really well. You can get quite a bit in a charge. I'm using mine. Mine's kind of parked in my basketball bag right now for referee stuff, because sometimes we don't get the chance to warm up like we do. And so this allows me to kind of get my muscles a little bit warm, stimulate things a little bit in the locker room before the game. I'd be curious to know how much this does for you.
I don't know how much of it is real or if it's a placebo effect. I'm not sure.
It's a placenta effect is what it's called.
I don't think we can put that on the internet.
Is that right? No, it is placebo, not placenta. That's right. Anyway, no, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much. Someone needs to. We need to do some research on that. Or somebody that's watching this, maybe that's in physical therapy or something like that, could tell us if these really do work. But I've seen them. I've seen the PTs and chiropractors and people like that use these.
I think between these and then, I know a lot of people are also starting to get what are the legs called?
The sleeves, the Normatec sleeves.
Yeah, the Normatecs but I know a lot of people are starting to use those as well. Kind of similar concept in regards to getting blood flow in your muscles.
Yeah.
Usually after games for recovery. I know that just helps push all the old blood out basically and bring the new blood in.
Lactic acid. That's something I hear people say.
Yeah, we'll just use that word.
Yes.
I don't actually know what it is, but it sounds good.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think there's a ton of different options in this type of stuff. But I would say nothing replaces good old-fashioned stretching.
Yes.
But also, if you do have connections to a physical therapist, if I know for us, like we have people within our community that are PTs, or there's other people that reach out, like have your local organizations reach out and connect with these groups. I've got a buddy that's PT, and he'll do some manual manipulation, as well as if you've not had dry needling done before, that can be kind of painful at times, but it works wonders if you have issues. So these can be great. Definitely go in and, if you're running into aches and pains and things like that, talking to your general practitioner is not a bad idea, but I would encourage going to a PT clinic, especially those in your area. If you have one in your area that's more sports specific, we've got a handful of options in Kansas City, but there's some that are more sports specific, things like that. Those can be really, really helpful. But yeah, great resource. And the size of this, you can find other ones that are these kind of minis. I would encourage the smaller size just because it fits easier in your bag. And it's easier to travel with and all that kind of stuff. So very good. Was that the last of our items that we have here?
I think that's the last one I brought today.
Yeah.
I know there's a handful of other things I probably could have talked about in regards to flags, whistles, coins.
Yeah, we've talked about some of the referee-specific stuff, but there's other things with regards to watches. We've talked a little bit about that before, but different programs that you can use, different watches, and Garmin. A lot of folks are Garmin fanatics. I use an Apple Watch when I referee, and then a basic timepiece I got off Amazon for $15 on the other side. And I know we both use the Ref 6 platform. So we'll plug them, and what Ref 6 is doing, fantastic app that you can use. And there's some other knockoff type things that's really, really good. But I pay for the pro version of it, and it allows me to see a much more broken down analysis of just how much I walked and stayed in the center circle. Like my heat map is like, it's like the sun. It's like,
it still looks green.
It's like the Japanese flag in there, man. It's just a big red dot right in the middle of that thing. So
that's wonderful.
Anyway, no, but a lot of great resources that way. I know there's some other brands for watches and things that people use. You're an Apple Watch guy, right?
I'm an Apple Watch guy, and then I also I got a Garmin a couple years ago, and so before I switched back to another Apple Watch, and so I actually wear both now. I'm a tech guy. That's why I'm on this episode. That's why I wear both.
Nerd! Yeah.
Guilt is charged. But, so I wear both, and I love both of them for their own reasons. Garmin has their own Referee Watch app. It doesn't let you keep track of scores and cards and that sort of thing on there, but it does a very good time of keeping track of stoppage time and your distance run, all that sort of stuff that you can keep on there. It's nice to have options between if you want to use Polar, Apple Watch, Garmin, Vivo Active. I know there's so many out there. But yeah, it's just kind of up to you. I know Ref 6 only works with a couple different watches. Mm-hmm. Their website will tell you which ones they work with, but that's kind of been my go-to recently is Ref 6 on the Apple Watch, and that's how I keep track of every single game now.
What about Whoop?
Whoop, I don't think so.
They don't have a
Well, when you're lacking a screen, that doesn't really help you.
Yeah, they don't have it.
Yeah.
So, but what's that do? That tracks your sleep
Yeah.
and just
And like everything else.
yeah.
For
Those Whoop bands, right? This is a thing.
It is a thing.
You whooped for a while.
I whooped for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I saw the price and I said, whoop, there it goes.
Yeah, nice.
Like that? Yeah.
That is good stuff.
So
we should be charging for this kind of content. That is good stuff.
we would have no subscribers.
No,
that's okay.
But yeah, okay, very cool. So lots of options that way. And I know some people will wear like heart rate monitors.
Yep.
Or the Stat Sports tracking pods.
Yep.
Different things like that. Have you ever done either of those?
I have not. I use my watch to keep track of my heart rate during games so I can kind of see how I'm doing in regards to my physical just well-being during those games and to see just how hard am I actually working. Some games, I could feel like, I worked really hard after the game, and then afterwards I look down and go, I only ran 5 miles or 4 miles or whatever it was, but my heart rate was really up, so I know something's going wrong, and either I just need to work on my fitness myself, or I need a different kind of training. Maybe I need to do more interval training to get used to game speed versus just going out on long walks to the fridge.
Yes.
So.
Right.
But yeah, there's lots of options out there. I do know a couple referees that use the chest strap because they get a much better reading compared to your wrist. Makes sense. But those are a little bit more expensive. I think they're uncomfortable personally, but again, to each their own. And then the Stat Sports one you were talking about is what you see a lot of players wearing now.
Like the pod that's kind of back here, right?
Yeah, it kind of looks like the sports bra. You put the pod in the back.
Right.
And from what I know, some people really enjoy those. They think it gives you really good readings on your running dynamics. I personally think my Apple Watch and my Garmin, or either one of those, is good enough. I don't like to get that detailed into the metrics, and I don't need to look at it every single game. But it's nice to just have a general idea of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, lots of options there, for sure. And like other things, like you don't have a pacemaker.
Do not that I'm aware of.
Okay, yeah, I don't think that's anything that anybody would do on purpose, but we could have somebody in here that does. I don't know. Okay, so lots of ways that technology is stepping into our game on the referee side of things. And of course, this is only the tip of the iceberg as far as what's being utilized at the professional level and all that kind of stuff. But for those of us that are just mere mortals, the peasants that we are, things that we can use that our leagues allow us to use. And again, I'd reemphasize that. Make sure before you start spending money on stuff, make sure that where you're officiating regularly is going to be okay with you utilizing that technology.
Absolutely.
And then within that, just start to explore it. Maybe it's not one of those things where you go crazy on it, but to start to kind of feel things out and see what works for you. Sometimes the old school stuff is just best. And there's definitely times where because I use Ref 6, but there's times when it's just there's something nice about getting out the old pen and paper and writing it. Flags, we didn't really go down that road, but if we're using beepers or what do we have? There's definitely something to just good old-fashioned. Again, it can't replace bad mechanics, and it can't replace poor work ethic and being out of position and bad communication with just normal eye contact, things like that. So let's make sure we focus on those things first and foremost instead of going, well, if I can just get this next piece of technology, my game's going to change forever. Like, that's just not the case.
Yeah, I would say you can't rely on it too much because then you start going away from actually refereeing the game. You just start relying on, this thing will fix it for me. And I think what we found is that is not the case.
Absolutely.
People that rely on it too much end up being a worse referee than they were just keeping things simple.
Right. And I mean, you should know, right?
Why do you think I own all this stuff?
Right. We rest our case. All right. Well, we'll be back with more here. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsor, JF Consulting, and we'll be back with more wonderful Check Complete content. The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help.
Excited to sit down today virtually with Sarah Gonzalez. Sarah is the girls soccer coach at Shawnee Mission West High School. She has experience officiating. She's a teacher. She's a friend of mine that we've known each other for several years and worked together, in a unique way, referee and coach, but work together to provide the best possible environment for student athletes in this area. So Sarah, thanks for taking time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so that's the very brief introduction. What else would you like to share with us about who you are?
I've been coaching for 20 years now. It went by very, very fast. I got to play at the great University of Kansas. I was a goalkeeper, very short goalkeeper. But, when I started back in second grade playing soccer, it was just to fill between basketball and softball. So did not think that soccer was my future. And then about fifth, sixth grade, just found a passion for it and wanted to learn more. Plus, my parents wanted me to get a job. So I started refereeing, which was an amazing, different view of that, and had the honor of winning the 1999 Youth National Referee of the Year way back when. So I was able to go to Florida and see nationals and help be a kind of a fifth official. I would say I wasn't the fourth official, but I was the fifth official. Just got to be part of that experience. Refereed some college games, but then when I started playing college soccer, I kind of retired in the referee side. And, I think when my kids get older, I think I would love to jump back into it because I enjoy being in that part, just being part of the game in any way.
Well, we've got that soundbite recorded. So in several years, we will loop back to that to get you recertified. Good. Yeah,
I mean, I have 2-year-old twins, so they're ways away from getting older.
True. Yes, that is true. So you have been able to see and have such a unique experience and perspective because you've been able to see all aspects of the game, which quite honestly, I wish more would. I think that gives an appreciation to this beautiful sport that we appreciate. So, you already talked about how you got into refereeing. So it was really just a way to make money. And then you kind of found out you were pretty good at it, or were there people that invested in you, or how did that transpire?
I think, when a lot of younger kids get into it, it is kind of just a job. And unfortunately, you get thrown into the side fields where the parents just kind of take over and scare you. But I didn't back down with it, which I think some of the parents were kind of surprised. And I kind of enjoyed being able to control the flow of the game. Not really control, I shouldn't say, but like just help it flow even more and not listen to the outside. And just wanted to be part of it. I had a teammate who was actually an opponent at the time, but Stacy Leeper also refereed. And then another one named Nikki Wally and Reagan Dyro. The four of us just kind of refereed a lot. And we just kind of got scheduled together. So it was nice to hang out with opponents and teammates and help build each other because we were a lot of young females out there and they didn't like that at first. And then we just kept growing more and more confident. So I think those three women really helped me grow as a referee and wanting to be there more.
So a lot of what you're saying there, just to extrapolate, the confidence piece was built a lot on that you were in it together, right? And you were in it with people that could empathize with your situation. That you're a female and especially, forgive me for saying back then, but especially back then.
It's been a while.
Right? Yeah. Back then, I mean, we are thrilled to see the recent continued growth within females in sport, and then especially within this niche of refereeing. We've got some female referees that have excelled in refereeing, but that's like very recent. So it really was such a male dominated thing, even probably when you were stepping at it in just the local youth leagues. Is that true?
Yeah. I went on to referee at regionals, got to represent Kansas, and I was the only female to go. They had to have me room with a referee from Iowa because she was the only other female from Iowa to go at the time, which she was about 10 years older than me. So she kind of took me under her wing too. Faith Rossi, she was amazing,
Oh
and just
yeah.
someone to kind of talk to. And I was honored to get a center at regionals, which is very hard to get whenever you're a young referee. And I don't think people realize the community. You know, when you're a coach, when you're a player, you don't see it, but the referee community is so strong and tight knit that
Yeah.
when I had a center, there were 30 referees that came to watch me just because they
Mhm.
were showing their support. Now, they didn't wear the referee outfits. They kind of stayed back, so it didn't look like I had this wall of referees there to help. But it was just so amazing that they were there cheering me on and clapping, or, you know, just showing their support in any way. And so the referee
Yeah.
community is very tight knit, and it's fun to be part of. Now, I'm kind of on the other side, so a lot of them don't know me because it's been a while since I have refereed. But for the ones I do know, they kind of like, it was a referee. We get it with that. So
Right. Right. So you got to play at a high level. You played soccer. What was your perception or relationship? This is going off the beaten path a little bit, but perception or relationship with referees? No, I did include that question. Awesome. Wow, that's great.
good.
Perception or relationship with referees as you went about your playing career, especially as a referee.
It was fun seeing some of the ones that I kind of grew up and refereeing with go into the college level. And, you know, I got to ride in the cars with some of them too, whenever we would drive to other places. So seeing them on the college field was fun. And then sometimes it'd be like, oh man, you're refereeing. No, and then just joking
Yeah,
around.
right.
And so it was wondering weird with my teammates seeing me talking to the refs. Like, who talks to the refs? But of course I did, because again, it's such a tight community. What's fun now, kind of off the beaten path with that, is I'm commentating for KU soccer now.
Yeah.
And so I can get the perspective of the referee too at times. You know,
Mhm.
why are they calling this type of game? What are they seeing? You know, the emotions are starting to get heightened, and you can see the referee has tightened up the play, and just giving that aspect of it too.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Because once you've had that, even though you haven't, when's the last time you officiated? Aside from an alumni game, maybe.
Yeah, I do. The alumni event that we have, I do referee basically to keep Nikki Wally from getting a red card. But I would say it's been about 20 years since I
Yeah.
have, which is sad to say. I do, being a varsity soccer coach, whenever we need a C team referee, I'll jump in, and I'll be wearing khakis and a polo, and the players are going, "Why is Gonzalez refereeing?" And then they're like, "Man, she's keeping this game up. We better show up," you know?
Yeah.
So I can definitely step in, but I have not been certified in a while to do it. I need to take the referee test, but it's been about 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where once you've been kind of exposed to that other side of things, you have that perspective. Even though the game may have changed, even though laws and rules have changed and things, it's like you can never not know that, right? I mean, you always understand that referee vantage point, I think,
Well, I
at
think what
least for a
also
lot
was
of us.
fun when I was at KU, I remember at a practice, we were working on set pieces, and the rule had changed at the time. It had to like roll forward a full, you know, and
Hmm.
then they changed it to, it just had to be touched for the time at the college game. And so I was like, "Hey, coach, actually this changed." And they're going, "Okay, we got to redo our set piece," because they didn't even know that it had
Yeah,
changed. So I know they always enjoyed me updating them on the rules, because I always kept up to date with what was going on with
sure.
that.
So playing career, you had refereed, you kind of hung that up, you continued to play, and then how did you get involved into coaching? Well, how did that happen?
When I graduated from Shawnee Mission West, I put on my senior thing wanting to teach math and coach soccer. So I always knew, leaving Shawnee Mission West, that was a dream of mine. And Mark Sheldon was my high school coach. He went on to help coach at KU for a while. He's now an assistant at UMKC, doing great things with Jess Smith. But he came back to West while I was still in college. And I remember I had just finished up playing our last game, and it was a couple weeks after, and he called. He goes, "What are you doing this spring?"
Hmm.
I don't know. Season just ended. Soccer career is done, I guess. As well, we have a JV opening. Maybe this is my
Right.
my niche, what I need. So he welcomed me onto his staff, and then I ended up student teaching at West, and he kind of trained me. It wasn't the field aspect that he was working with me. It was kind of the off the field stuff of the paperwork, all of the
Sure.
organizing. And then he had the opportunity to coach at Olathe Northwest when it opened. And so he goes, "You're ready?" And I'm moving on. And so I've interviewed, and was very lucky to be a young varsity head coach, but at the time I was the only female head coach in 6A for Kansas soccer, which is crazy. But
Wow.
now it's changed, which is awesome.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That tide has turned significantly, and I think you were, in a lot of respects, a trailblazer in that, and which is incredible. So I guess moving into kind of what, and I think a lot of our audience, right, are the nerdy referee types. If you're listening to a referee podcast, you're a special kind of a nerd. But the question is often, how do we? At least I hope it's being asked, how do we improve the relationship with coaches and referees? I think we're trying to get to that point instead of just a us versus them, which I know some folks that have been in it for a long time, just kind of, they might get, that's what it is. But I think the majority of us really do, especially at the youth and high school levels, want to make sure that that's a working relationship. So maybe on the more negative side of that, what are the biggest hindrances that you feel like, I may have already articulated one, to the relationship, a positive relationship between coaches and referees?
It's changed now because the first game that I that I was coaching as a varsity coach, my assistant was a man, and the center referee walked right by me and went right to my assistant and said, "All right, hey, coach, excited for a good game. Can I get your roster?" And he goes, "Why don't you ask the head coach?" And I was like waving, going, "Wait, that's me. I'm supposed to talk to them." So I know, in knowing who the head coach is, that has changed a lot with, having the information put out there ahead of time. A lot of the referees know that. I think a big thing is being willing to admit a mistake, both from the coaches and the referees. I really acknowledge that, whenever I yell at something and I was wrong, like, hey, that was on me. I messed up on yelling that. You were at the right call, but vice versa. Whenever a referee makes a mistake, just be like, hey, my bad. That means a lot to the coaches. And with that, I think that sometimes doesn't happen. A lot of referees try to control the game. A lot of coaches try to control the game too, I know, so I can't say much. But in not being the center of attention, I think is big. Whenever the referee is just helping the game flow, calling those needed calls, it's just so smooth and so nice. When wow, that referee did awesome. I understand when there's a good talking to, but sometimes when we're yelling with emotion, sometimes we're just yelling to be loud. And some people take that as they're getting yelled at, and then an automatic card is going out. But you couldn't hear whenever I was saying stuff before, so I'm really yelling it now. And understanding, I think understanding the growth of the game is really big too. The game, whenever I play it, is so different from now. And one of your questions I really liked was how female sports has changed so much. I'm not saying we were not good athletes. We were great athletes, but it has improved even more. They're more creative. They're doing more outside of the field. And in seeing that it's a physical game, not keeping it too tight, because just because they're women doesn't mean that they can't play hard, and understanding that.
Yeah. Oh man, such good points wrapped up in that. And I think, like you said, knowing the moments, it's fresh on my mind coming off of a basketball game. It's a different sport, but similar concept. We had an evaluator on Friday night, and he was praising us in the moment, but oftentimes we do miss this of when the game needed us to step in and when the game just needed us to step back and let the kids play, and that can be, as you know, from various vantage points that you've had on the game, that can be such a challenging line to toe, because you're like, okay, if I let this kind of happen, is that going to open the door to something else, or are they going to respond favorably to that, versus, okay, if I step in, have this little moment, and then I pull back and see what that looks like. And probably similarly in a coaching, put your coaching hat on, right? Like, do I step in and have this conversation or this point of direction, or do we step back and see how this plays out? And I think even acknowledging how similar our roles are, even though we wear different outfits, and one socks are slightly higher and more awkward than the other, right? Like, I don't know why we have to dress like this, but but that we're all in this with very similar goals. It's just our roles look slightly different, and I think we fail to make those connections at times. I hope we're getting better with that, but sometimes I feel like we take step forwards. Other times it feels like steps back. I'm not sure.
It goes in waves. I think it's been a lot better lately, recently. Last spring, I thought especially they did a great job. I think another also thing is, I feel there's still a difference in the men's and women's side, maybe more of youth, is fouls are called. But I think sometimes in the men's game, they're allowed to be more emotional, more intense, and not carded. And then sometimes in the women's game, they're carded right away. I'm like, well, why did they get a card? In the men's game, that wouldn't have been, and they're not getting in each other's faces, but kind of close with that. The referee will step and be like, hey, back off. That's a warning. But sometimes in the women's game, it's just, they're expected to be polite athletes at times when it can't happen. You need to let them just be athletes.
That goes into really what the next question I had lined up for us was, from the vantage point of playing and coaching in the women's game, what aspects of the game do officials most often misunderstand or simply fail to grasp? And I think it's interesting you bring this up because it wasn't this last fall, but the fall before in a college game, I had a male coach for a women's team approach us about that. And it was specific to language because he goes, man, I hear in like a men's college game, I'll hear all sorts of, call it incidental language or just things that are being said. And it feels like my girls, as soon as something slightly off color comes out, the card is quick to follow. And it made me question back, like, okay, is that something that I've done right? Just to apply it to myself to go, let me make myself aware of it. But I think that's a really good point that it does kind of do that. And I'm not sure, I don't know if I know why. I don't know if it's because male referees, and I will say this for me, I find refereeing women's games to be much more difficult for me than refereeing a men's game, just because I have a much harder time connecting and relating with the players. And sometimes the contact for me and the female players can be much more intelligent with the way that they play and the way that they will be more like guys. It's like, if a guy's ticked, he's going to let you know right away, he's going to be an idiot. Whereas a girl can be much more, I don't mean to be calculating on that sense, but they can be much more strategic with how they're doing different things. Right. And sometimes like, I feel like I can talk to a male player a little bit easier than I can talk to a female. So maybe that contributes to some referees just going, you know what? I'm not even going to try to manage. I'm just going to give a card. And so it could be just an issue of tools. But what do you think those issues are as far as what referees maybe fail to grasp or misunderstand? And then maybe we can get towards the solutions, but maybe it's just identifying what those are first.
I think it also needs to be on the coach too. It can't just be on the refs for that, because I know when a person's been taken down, I'm like, oh, I got to get them off now. Because that's been ready to backfire. They're going to retaliate, and that's not going to be a good situation with that. But I think that's where you got to rely on your assistants. And, I'm not sure if everyone has the talking one, but make sure that they know, keep an eye on this player because something's going to happen behind my back. And that's where the trio really needs to be knowing what to look for, or just in reading the situation. This person just got taken out really badly. They're walking away frustrated. Nothing's happening right there because it won't. But in about 10 minutes, that other person's going to be taken out by someone. It doesn't necessarily, and that's maybe a difference between men's and women's. There's some teams that there's a player going, right, I'm going to take him out. They took out my player, I'm going after him. But again, as coaches, we need to watch that too. Yeah,
right. And that's a huge, I know there's times when I've been very happy with a coach that's been, especially in games where they're like a high school game where there are no substitution restrictions. I understand that it might be a loss to have that player out for a certain amount of time, but is it better to have that player out for 2 minutes than to have them thrown out and play a player down and be, those kind to me, that's where it starts to weigh in. But conversely, when you have a coach that you feel like you're able to then work with in that, I'm able to go look over and go, hey, Sarah, and most of the time, I don't even need to say it, right? But if I need to be able to, hey, number 12 or 15, she's we've got a little bit of this going on, just between you and me. I think that goes back to that question of those are the moments where I feel like we are most effective for the sake of the players in the game. When we're able to then have those kinds of conversations, brief interactions that feel like it's best for the whole situation. Are there other aspects of the game that you feel like are misunderstood as far as the female game is concerned?
No, I think that's kind of the main thing, the emotions, recognizing that, allow them to have them with some things. I mean, going and decking a player, no, that's not, but recognizing that I feel, it's what you said, that what that coach talked to you about. Some cards are easily given to the women's game than the men's because they're like, oh, they just need to let it out and they'll be fine. Still allowing them to celebrate, still allowing them to be mad. And sometimes they're not even mad at the refs. Sometimes they're mad at each other and just yelling at each other.
Right. So I guess this also dovetails off of that, but at the level that you see most frequently, which I guess is high school for sure, but then that you're seeing so much of the collegiate game too in your role. They're doing some commentating and things. Where has the officiating you felt like been good, and where are those kind of growth edges or areas for development?
I've seen so many more female referees in the college level, which is outstanding. One of my favorite crews was an all-female crew. Unfortunately, I don't remember all of their names, but they were just, it was such a smooth game. KU didn't win that game, unfortunately, but it was not because of those situations. I would say that still in recognizing the speed of play in both levels, sometimes referees are getting a little too close to the game, and so when players are trying to switch the ball and it hits the ref, and that kind of bugs me whenever they're right on top of, we kind of keep saying that whenever the referees are letting the game flow, continue not getting in the way, I would say. And that's not necessarily fitness. That's just reading the situation. Just continue reading, seeing that, okay, this player is pretty creative. They're going to do something with the ball. I need to make sure I'm giving their space, has been something that I've seen. And that was in the college level too. There were some referees that were right on top of them and it kept stopping because it kept hitting the ref. And there's some that, gave them 10 yards and let them play. And it was nice to see.
Yeah. Has one of the things that we talk about with, and this comes from a female referee, Tori Penso, who's been recognized at the, international level, what she's doing. She talked about, in some presentations I've heard her give, she talked about how as a female referee in the men's game, she uses the first 10 to 15 minutes, especially that period, to show her work rate and to show her knowledge of the game, and to show that even though she probably doesn't need to prove this, but to show that she belongs there. And so that sets the tone. Conversely, we tell a lot of our male officials, you have that first 10 to 15 minutes. If there's something that you miss because it was a mistake, or B, you weren't mentally engaged or prepared or whatever, oftentimes female players can think of that as this referee, especially as a male referee, doesn't care. Like, they came into this game thinking that, oh, it's a girls' game, it'll be slower, it won't be as intense, it won't be all that kind of stuff. Is that an accurate assumption? Do those thoughts go through female player and coaches' heads?
Well, the girls remember the refs. They will always remember the refs. They'll remember plays. Like, we had that. I mean, I don't remember. I know a lot of them, but I don't remember everything. Didn't memorize every bad or good situation. So like, oh, okay, so they're not going to move as fast. So we can, we need to watch out for that. Or they don't call offside, we got to watch out for that. They always remember those things. So I would say limit your mistakes in the female game because they will remember them. But they do recognize that. I remember when I was a ref, I used the first 10 to 15 to kind of keep it tight, then loosen up. That was probably the wrong way with that. But I always kind of appreciated it a little tighter and then loosened up because, you know that they're going to call it, and then, let it flow a little bit more. But I think overcalling it does hurt it as well, because then you're like, well, we can't do anything right. So you have to kind of find the balance with that. So I feel, especially in the women's game, if girls, they're going to start getting heated the more that you allow. And so in the first 10 to 15 minutes, if you're allowing all this stuff, they're going to remember that. And that's when we talk about how the coach has to keep an eye, or referee needs to be aware because that person was taken out in the first 10 to 15 minutes, no call. I'll get them back, type of thing.
Yeah. Very interesting. So big picture, not just high school, not just college, but it can be narrowed to that in your answers, certainly. But what are the keys to continuing to value this diversity and equity and inclusion in our sport? And I'll get to it more on the referee side too, but there's, I think we're seeing that continuing to grow and develop, that it's not just, even in our referee community, we look at things, you're like, okay, who's working tonight? White man, white man, white man, and it's like, okay, I'm not saying they don't do a good job, but are we making this a community that welcomes that diversity? Because I think we're better when we do. So what are the keys to continuing down that road from your vantage point?
Mentorship is huge. Scheduling with people that they can go with. I mean, having Faith Rossi as a mentor for me, she had been, at the time, she was a newer referee, but she had done regional, she had done men's leagues, and she kind of gave me the ideas of going into the Hispanic leagues and refereeing. She goes, if you want to really get challenged, go take those games. And man, those are some intense, very talented games. But that's something that I definitely had to learn to earn my respect, because they all looked at me and like, yeah, you're not going to referee our game. And then I did. And then they recognized me for a while. But having that mentorship, something believing, continuing the talks with the coaches. I know that's something you've done with Jamie Kelly, which has been good, and recognizing that we are all on the same team. We all just want the beautiful game to happen and not control it. And listening to each other. I mean, coaches need to listen too. I know that's something that I need to. I know my assistants always say, though, if I'm yelling, that probably means that something bad happened, because I do have the referee view of that as well. And sometimes my coaches are yelling and I'm like, no, they're right. So coaches are recognizing, that too. But making sure that we are communicating, and just in all of us reading the game. We talked about that, and seeing the heated players, and that needs to be coach to coach. I know there's some coaches who say like, hey, this girl's getting a little chippy. Some of them I'm friends with that I feel I can go talk to them and say, hey, can you watch out for that girl? And also in talking to the refs, but just continuing those conversations. I was, again, a female going into the only one. I was the only Hispanic female too with that. So it was very lonely at the time. But now some of my soccer players are refereeing, and I love seeing, I try to push for them too. I try, and some of them are just scared. So the fans also need to recognize that people are trying. We don't want to scare them off too early. So having those mentors, keep growing them. And I try to make sure I compliment. I don't know if I've complimented you in a long time, Gordy, but I know I've complimented a lot of other referees.
I haven't done anything to earn it. That's the thing, Sarah. So maybe when I do, and you are good with that. You're absolutely good with that. Yeah. And I think sorry to interrupt you there. Was there more that you were going to, I was just going to say, I think a lot of the coaches in this area, it feels, at least where we're at, and I don't know how far reaching our audience is, but I'm hoping that relationship feels to be continuing to improve. And I do see a lot of our coaches, especially with the high school level, when we have younger officials, there is a little bit of that we're kind of feeling each other out a little bit, because there isn't that relationship. Whereas I've known a lot of these coaches for a very long time. But there at least is coaches will say, hey, I may not have agreed with this kind of stuff, but it was really nice to see a young referee that can run, that kind of thing. And I'm always appreciative of that we're recognizing when we're getting younger, and that those need to be I don't know if this is the right word, but preserved a little bit, right? They might need a pat on the back a little bit more than somebody's been at it for a long time. So I think we're making progress in that area, at least in our part of the state. And I think that's a testament to both sides of this. So, well, I do want to, in a lighter thing, we've been doing this or that segment, and I really want to do this because it's been fun, and I'm just intrigued. So, if you've not tuned into this before, this or that segment, maybe you've seen it on social media. We've been asking our guests, it's a smash and grab. Here we go. One, it's you give this option or that option. So our first example will be, and Sarah, you are welcome to just answer it, but it's way more fun if you answer and then give a rationale, because then we might be able to get into a heated debate about it. We'll see. All right. So ice cream or cake?
Ice cream. Cake sometimes is too much frosting.
Yes. So good. Okay. We're off to a good start. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. I despise tea. I don't know how I agree with Ted Lasso on it. Tea is not my thing.
Also a Shawnee Mission West alum.
Had to put it out there. Him and Paul Rudd.
Yep.
I'm proud of our Vikings.
That's right.
I did beat Jason
Beat
Sudeikis. That was pretty fun. So
when?
when he found Sydney Miramontes is a former player of mine. She went
Uh-huh.
on to play at Nebraska, went on to play professionally, and I was honored to go to her wedding. And it was at the hotel downtown. I just lost the name of it. But when Jason Sudeikis was in town, he was staying at the hotel and he was out in the restaurant area with some friends. And I was actually too scared to go talk to him. But my wife was like, "We're doing this. We're going." And so she
Yes.
walked up and he was very polite at first, but she goes, "Well, she coaches at West and teaches at West." And he stood right up and just started chatting with us and asking how West was. So he was very friendly. So got to meet a fellow Viking.
That is awesome. Awesome, awesome. All right. Beach or mountains?
Beach. I like
Okay.
playing in the sand.
Fair enough. Fair enough. iPhone or Android?
iPhone. That's what my wife bought, and so I go with it. It's easy
You
for
just
me.
roll with it. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys have all the Apple stuff, right, with Shiny Missions. So
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
kind
So it makes it easier. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Cats or dogs?
Cats. We have a cat right now, but all three kids are asking for a dog, so I might be switching that in the future.
You may relent. Yes. All right. Fair enough. Night owl or morning person?
Morning, get up at 4:30 in the morning to work out.
Bless your heart. I need some of that in me. All right. So as far as if you're going to, let's do playing weather and then coaching weather. Okay. So if you're going to play, do you want it hot or cold?
As a goalkeeper, I did not really care about the temperature. I just didn't want it windy. That was the only thing. I could play in hot and cold, but when it was windy, that just messed with it so much. Rain doesn't matter, but the wind, whenever it had that really high wind, there was a field I played at in Olathe Heritage Field that I swear had a downhill field that was going against the wind. Worst games. You always play the best team too, and you always had to go against the wind, uphill pretty much. So just anything not wind.
If
But
it was at
playing,
Heritage, yeah, if it was at Heritage, there's a large chance that it was downhill. Yes.
yeah, I think it was field 15 and just boom.
Yeah.
So, but coaching wise, I would say I really enjoy playing in the cold because I feel sometimes the heat really limits the players. It doesn't allow
Yeah.
them to be them. As much as we try to say hydrate, 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 all of the players are into Celsius drinks right now, and it's insane. And even though we're saying those are horrible for you, the cramps come, and you don't get the full player. I feel in the cold you can.
And then referee, I guess I didn't include that in there, but referee weather, what do you prefer?
I would say the same. No wind, just no wind, because running into that wind when you feel you're trying to keep up with the play, or whenever they get the big boom with the wind, you're like, oh man, there's a 60-yard sprint I need to catch up to. But hot and cold, it didn't matter to me on that too. I enjoyed all of them.
I always like working with a newer official that they're just wide-eyed about the experience, and so they don't factor in like which AR is going to be worse for the wind. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be AR1." They're like, "Oh, you're going to be in front of the coach today?" I'm like, "That the coach has nothing to do with my decision.
Yep,
you're just going to be running for 80 minutes, bro." But anyway,
pretty much, yeah.
All right. Okay, so win in a blowout or a nail biter?
Nail biter. Blowout, it's tough to coach either way. I mean, I've been on both ends. It's just you try to ask for more, but it's tough mentally. I will challenge them mentally with the loss or the win to get better. But in a nail biter, it's easy for them to stay mentally focused. It's easy. They're already challenged with that score and understanding of it. Plus, I just feel that it's, when you go into overtime, who can overcome their soreness, their exhaustion, and still stay focused and be precise in the game.
All right, I've got two more that I didn't share with you in advance, but they've come to me as we've talked. So wait, hold on, I think I lost one of them. What was the other one I was thinking about? Okay. Yeah, only 33, but it's memory's going fast. So let's see. When it comes to coaching a team, would you rather have a bunch of underclassmen youngsters that are doing great, or would you rather have the senior heavy tried and true group?
That one's a tough one because I have had both. And eventually the youngsters become the seniors. But I'd say right now I'd go with the seniors because you can really trust in what that they're taking care of things and are ready and know the system already and are just wanting to step on the field.
Yeah. And I lost the other one, so that's this or that segment. It has now come to a very abrupt close. But no, this has been such a good conversation, and I so appreciate all that you've done for high school soccer in Kansas and continue to do. You have found so much success in various ways. I know sometimes we pigeonhole success. Coaches, it's just wins and losses, and we know that success is so much broader than that with what you're doing with student athletes. And the same thing with officials. We try to tell officials that success is not, did I make it to get a FIFA badge? Being successful is, there's a lot of people that will never do higher than, sometimes it's Heartland, but we've got some and I say Heartland, for those of our audience bigger, that's our local youth league. But there's somebody I met mentoring this past, I guess it was spring, that there's a gentleman that he comes out, and I think twice a weekend he comes out and does 3 9v9 games in the middle. And his whole job is to just come out and do that. He goes, it gets me out of the house. He may have said it gets him away from his wife. I don't remember who it was, so I'm probably not going to get him in trouble. But he goes, it's some exercise for me, but he goes, I can help younger officials develop, and I enjoy being a part of the game. And I'm like, we celebrate the people that have made it to the top as well. We should, but those are people we need to celebrate too. And so I think sometimes recalibrating success is really important. So thank you for being successful in so many different ways. And being on our podcast today has just been fantastic. So I'll give you a chance to, if there's anything that you feel like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight unless I say this on the Check Complete podcast.
Just an advice of people in the community of soccer, be involved however you can. I would say I'm going to coach the rest of my teaching career, but I don't know. Kind of depends on, I have 3 young kids. Soccer is just in my heart and always will be. So I know that when I am stepping down as a coach, not this year, not anytime soon, but in future, I'll still want to be involved. And I think it'll be more of refereeing a C game, refereeing a youth game, it's easy for people to get excited to referee a center of a college game or a high school game, but we need to recognize that all of the community needs to have officials. So I'm retired now from refereeing, but I know it will be coming back in the future, and that can hold me to it. Definitely.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. I look forward to a great spring season here in Kansas as we play our high school girls soccer in the spring here I know different states do different things, so we're excited for that. If it ever decides to get above 25 degrees.
It's going to snow right before high school season. It always does, so we're just ready for that.
Yeah, it's a prophecy. We're going to enjoy our cold weather games as we talked about.
Yep,
so
pretty much.
But, thanks so much for your time. We so appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, sadly, we come to a close here of Season 2, Episode numero 13. Nathan, thanks for being with us.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we've enjoyed an opportunity to nerd out. Nathan will be back. We're going to dive into a little bit more on another episode of some of the items that we discussed and maybe a few that we may have missed. So don't worry, you'll get more Nathan very soon.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. Get your therapist on the phone. So if you're not already following us, liking our content, subscribing to it, sharing it with your families, your friends, your coworkers, people you don't know, please do that. At check_complete on X and Instagram. That's what Twitter is now, right? X?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Check Complete Podcast on Facebook, and the Check Complete Podcast on the YouTubes. If you're not watching it there, if you're listening to us, I don't blame you. I know what I look like. But if you'd like to watch, we have a video version on the YouTubes as well. So like and subscribe to that if you so desire. Thanks so much for engaging with the Check Complete Podcast. We hope that you enjoy whatever it is that's next on your game list, whether that be futsal, indoor, outdoor, wherever you are in the country or the world. Get out there. Happy whistling. Thank you again, Nathan.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next time on the Check Complete Podcast.